The graphics hose tool is used to spray objects onto your page. It's really cool to use for like decorative page borders or other frequently used objects. Let's go ahead and go to the extra tools panel if you don't have this panel already out, and let's just go to Window, go to Toolbars, and go to Extra Tools, and just select that. And once we get back here, let's just go ahead and take a look at the graphics hose, which is this icon here, by double clicking on it. And currently you see that there's two settings up here, one for hose and one for options. Right now let's just look at the hose, and you see what the current selection is, and you can see what all the selections are by just going and just scrolling on this list here. You can create new hose patterns, you can rename them, and you can also duplicate them as well. And then whenever you create a new one, then you just go and you just paste it in, and then if at any time you want to delete it, you can also delete it. And within one pattern you can have multiple objects too, so that's pretty cool. So if you wanted to like copy this one out and then place it inside of another one, you can do so by just going here, and you can just paste that in. So now when you spray this out, that star will be included inside the flower pattern. So let me just show you real quick what I'm talking about. Just scoot this out of the way, and let's just see there. Now you have flowers and stars. And then if that looks too weird or something, if you say, okay, that doesn't match, so you can just go and then just select your object and just look for the star, and you can just go delete, and you can just get rid of it that way too. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at the options setting under hose. So I'm just going to go up here and then click on options, and you see that we have a bunch of settings here. And for order, you can select the order that you want your objects in. So if you were to make this first selection back and forth, that would place your objects in a forward and then in a reverse order. The second one there, loop, places the objects in a numeric order, and random places your objects in a random order. And it's just going to click out of there. And just moving down to the next one for spacing, the grid selection would space your objects in columns and rows, and you can also set the size that you want in this window right there. And the next one, random, you can set your objects in a random order, or no specific order, and you can adjust the slider to adjust your spacing as well. And the next one we have is variable, and then variable spaces the objects on a scale of 0 to 200, and then of course 0 being the tightest and 200 being the loosest. And for the next one down the line, we have scale, and random just scales the objects randomly, and you can also adjust the scaling by just adjusting the slider as well. The next one is uniform, and uniform scales the objects progressively, and you can adjust it with the slider as well too. The next one that we have is rotate, and incremental applies rotations that change in specific increments from one object to the next. And for random, random rotates the objects randomly, and uniform sets a specific angle for all the objects. And you can also use this wheel to drag and get a specific angle too. Okay, let's go ahead and draw an object and create a new hose pattern. So I'm just going to go over and draw a circle, and let's just give it a little bit of color. I'm just going to drop some red in there, and then go up to edit, copy the item, and then come back and select the hose button, go to new, and let's rename this as red, and go save. And then hit the paste in button, and that'll paste in the red circle. So then just come back out here, select the graphics hose, and then you can just draw a simple path, and that'll have your red circles. And you can also incorporate different items within this as well. Let's go ahead and choose the flower, which I have in my library, so let's just drag the flower out and then just do the same thing. Just go up there and then copy it, then come back to hose and then select paste in. So let's draw a pattern with the hose now. See? And then now it has the flowers in there, so that looks kind of cute. And the cool thing is that you can include text in there, you can include symbols and envelopes, and also even bitmap images. So, just go ahead and play with this and have a lot of fun in just creating all different designs. In this exercise, we're going to use the brush selection, which is located inside the stroke panel. So if that panel isn't already open, let's just go up to Window, go to Inspectors, and select Stroke. Okay, and then make the brush selection here. And you see that I've already drawn a couple of different patterns here. And the cool thing about these, I like them because they're on a path. So you can use your pen, your pencil, or your Bezigon tool, and you can just draw a path and just have this brush selection chosen, and it'll draw whatever specific pattern you want. And the only thing how this differs from the graphics hose is that with the graphics hose, you can still select each item individually. But with this, it's on one path. Therefore, it just becomes one big item. So if you wanted to change the order of these items, you can in a sense, and I'll show you how you could. But otherwise, if you can change the shape of the path by, once again, just grabbing the handles and then changing it that way. Just like that. Or, you can go into the edit brush and right here edit, and you can play with the spacing, the angle, the offset, and the scaling here. And the cool thing is that it'll give you a brush preview of exactly what you're doing too. So it's like if you change anything in offset, for instance, it'll show you exactly what it'll do. So, you can go, nah, I don't like this, and I definitely don't like this, so maybe I just want to leave it exactly the way it is. But you can change the spacing, and then you can adjust it here by the percentage, and you can change the angle as well. And in addition to that, if you wanted to add or delete any symbols, you can do so at this point too. And then right now we're on the spray setting, and I'll show you the paint setting in just a second. Let's just click out of here, and let's just go back and just look at some of the different selections we have. And you see that there's a default paint, and that one's kind of weird. It's just kind of like almost a black paint stroke. And the default spray gives you these funky little arrow looking things. Since you can create brush patterns from any of the symbols stored in the library panel, any modifications done to the symbol will be global throughout your brush pattern. So let's go ahead, and you see the little clovers here. Let's go ahead and do a little color change on there. So I'm going to just go to my library panel and then select clover. And you can also just double click on this window to get into the edit mode. So I'm just going to make my selection there, and I'm going to just change the color a bit, and let's just add a tint of red to it. I'm going to just minimize that and close out of this window, and you see that the changes are already done, and the changes also reflect in this window as well. So let's go and just look as I have them on another page as well. And there they are, and you see that changes throughout both pages. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at another clover pattern that I've made. And let's go to clover 2. And you see that these are in an offset pattern, but also that these color changes are also reflected onto these. And let's just draw these and just to see what the difference is. And you see that since this is in an offset manner, that it comes out a lot different than this fixed pattern here. And that's because I went in to edit, and then I changed the offset. Instead of having a 0%, I set this at 120%. So, once again, you can, just play around like I did with this, because, you never know what you're going to come up with. You might come up with something cool and then just create it yourself a new pattern. But let's go ahead and deselect out of here. And I'm just going to scroll down and start deleting some stuff here so I can make some room for myself. Okay, now I have a clean slate to work with. Let's go ahead and create one more brush, but this time we're going to select the paint button. And I'm going to select the sphere this time. So let's just scroll down to sphere. And let's go into edit. Hit edit. And I'm going to change this button here to paint. And I'm going to leave it as a 1 count, because what happens is that the higher the value, it starts turning more into the sphere again. So I'm just going to leave it at 1. That way it looks like just one continuous stroke. And just hit OK and hit change. And I'm just going to get the pencil tool and just draw a simple path. And it looks like just a multicolored stroke. That's pretty cool. It gives it a neat effect. You would never know that that was a sphere. And just to show you for comparison's sake, if I were to go to edit and then add a count of 10, then watch what happens. And hit change. And then see the spheres start to come back. They're like elongated, but it starts taking on its original form again. So just, go ahead and just play and create different designs. And you can also, like the graphics hose, you can also import or export them to other documents as well. Let's go ahead and take a look at our transform panel. And if you don't have it open, just go up to Window, Panels, and select Transform. And I'm going to go ahead and select the star that I've placed on my page to activate the window, and the move is the very first icon here. And this is a cool feature where you can move your objects in the exact distance that you specify. You can also duplicate objects by moving it a certain distance away, and the horizontal and vertical distances are recorded into the move settings. And I've entered here a value of -1 and 1. And the number of copies that I want it to duplicate is 3. And I'm going to leave the contents and fills checked, as I do want the contents and fills to move with the object. So let's go ahead and hit move. And you see exactly what happened. It has moved in the exact distance that I've specified in these windows here. So let's go ahead, and now I'm going to do this a different way. I want to clone this last star that's still selected. So let's go to edit and go to clone. And this time I'm going to move this one myself. Okay? And I'm going to drop it to about here. And then you notice that the move distance settings also changed with that. And for the number of copies, I'm going to just choose 2 this time. And see, it's moved exactly in the same distance that was specified in this window, and it's just made 2 copies. You can also move an object without moving the mask within it by deselecting the contents. And let me just demonstrate here. And I'm just going to leave that on 2. And see, what happens is that when it's duplicated and moved, the pasted contents within it, or the mask, is not moved with it. And if we were to have a tiled fill, then if we did not want that tiled fill to move as we duplicated the object, then we would deselect the fills, but then that's when you would use the fills box. The next icon on the transform panel is the rotate function. We've learned to use this in an earlier exercise, but I want to show you another way to use it. And I've dragged the little face symbol out from the library, and I'm going to go ahead and select that and have the second button on your transform panel selected as well. And I've typed a rotation angle of 20 degrees in here. And for the X, I'm just going to go ahead and put a value of 4. And for the Y, I'm going to put a value of 7 in there. Oops. And number of copies, I'm going to leave that at 18 right now, and I'm just going to press rotate. And now you see that's placed the little faces in a perfect circular rotation. And if you wanted to manually rotate any symbols or objects, you can just go ahead and, let's see, let me just drag another face out here, and go to the main tools panel and select the rotate tool there, and then you'll see these little crosshair like things. and you can rotate your objects manually as well, and just like that. And the next icon on the transform panel is a scale tool, and that's used to scale objects up and down separately or in succession to create like a perspective effect. And that looks kind of neat. So let me go ahead and demonstrate that. I have the face selected, and I'm going to go ahead and enter 80 in here for percent. And for my X, I'm just going to go ahead and type a value of 9, and the same for the Y. And for number of copies, I'm going to put 8. And I'm going to move this out of the way so you can see exactly what happens. And I'm just going to leave everything here checked and hit scale. And you see what's happened. It's made 8 copies, and it's like 80% of each other in succession here. And that looks kind of neat because it gives it a far away or a perspective look. And another thing that you can do too is if you wanted to scale each, like say if you wanted to scale this one separately, you can just go here to the main tools panel as well, and then select the scale tool here, and you can just hold the shift key down to constrain the movement and just scale it this way. Or if you didn't want to constrain it, you can just grab a corner and you can just scale it out this way as well, and then that'll distort the image, but maybe that's the look you're looking for. So, and now let's take a look at the next tool of the transform panel, which is the skew tool. And I'm just going to go ahead and drag this one symbol out here and just drop this instance onto our page. And let's just make it a little bit bigger. And I'm going to go ahead and use the skew tool that's on our main tools panel, so just go ahead and select that. Now, if you want to constrain your movement to your vertical and horizontal axis, just like this, just go ahead and hold your shift key down to constrain the movement. Otherwise, if you just randomly want to skew it, you can go ahead and just move it around this way too. Or if you want to enter specific values in, you can use a transform panel and enter your specific values in there too, as well as adding additional copies. And another interesting thing that you can do once you skew your object, you can add a 3D look to it by applying the smudge tool. But if you're going to do that, since this is an instance, I have to release the instance. So I'm going to go to Modify and go to Symbol, and I'm going to release my instance. Now I can go and select my smudge tool and just go ahead and smudge away. And see that that creates a cool look to it. Another tool that you can use along with the skew tool, like say for instance, if you skewed this sunburst and you wanted to just add more of a 3D look to it, there is a 3D tool that's in the extra tools panel, this 3D rotation. So just go ahead and select that, and you can just go and play with that as well. And you see that, you can see it, it's like looking at it sideways right now. And you can just get different angles. So, you know, you can just do something like that and then go ahead and apply the smudge tool to it. And just drag it out like that. And see, that's another cool little effect. And the final icon on the transform panel is a reflect tool, which allows you to create a mirror image of an object. I'm just going to go ahead and drag this triangle out onto my page and go to my transform panel and make sure you have the very last icon selected right here, and just type in 90, and for the number of copies, let's just type 1 and hit reflect. And you see that it's made a mirror image of the triangle. And you can just go ahead and move that off to the side by holding your shift key down to constrain the movement and just move it off that way. Or you can use your arrows on your keyboard as well and just move it to wherever you want to reposition it. Oh, and kind of an FYI, if you enter a number higher than 1 for the number of copies, the multiple images will just stack on top of each other. And if you want to reflect an image and have it turned vertically, just go ahead and enter a value between 90 to 180 degrees. So let's go ahead and type this in at 180 degrees and hit reflect. And you see that now it's rotated 190 degrees. If you want to reflect an image and have it turned vertically, type in the value anywhere between 90 to 180 degrees and it will do so. So let's go type 180 and hit reflect. And then now it has reflected vertically. In this exercise, we're going to look at 5 path operations: union, divide, intersect, punch, and crop. The first one we're going to look at is union, which combines 2 or more closed paths into one single path. So let's go ahead and select these first 2 objects. And we can go to union by either going to modify, combine, union, or we can go through extra, path operations, and union. Same effect. And you'll notice that when the 2 paths blend, it takes on only one color. The dominant color happens to be the path that's in the background. So if you want a specific color to take precedence, make sure that it's in the background. So let's go ahead and deselect our image. And then let's select the star and bring it to the front. Now go to modify, combine. Oops, let's make sure that both objects are selected first. Now go to modify, combine, and go to union. Now let's go ahead and do the opposite with the green in the background. So I'm just going to select these 2 objects here, and we can go extras, path operations, and go to union. And this time it's turned green. And leaving the star in the background this time, let's go ahead and select that and just apply the same. And you notice that it's taken the purple, it's taken the color of the background, so now the entire object is purple. Now the next path operation I'm going to look at is divide. Divide separates selected paths by where they're overlapped on top of each other. And you may use open or closed paths or a combination of both to do so. So let's go ahead and select all these objects. And let's go to modify, combine, and go to divide. Now let's just deselect out of here, and I'm just going to use my arrow tool just so you can see that these have separated. I'm just going to move this one out here. And since this created new closed paths, you can also redefine the colors as well. So if you wanted to, like, say, change the color of that little piece there, you can either change it with the fill bucket here, or you can go into your fill inspector and just change the gradient from there as well. So you can just change it to like a blue if you want to. And you could just do the same with the rest of the other pieces too. And just like that. So you can come up with some pretty crazy looking patterns like this one turned out to be. This is pretty bizarre. And the next path operation that I'm going to move on to is intersect. Now, intersect creates a new path common to where the paths overlap. And any portions that don't overlap will be eliminated. So in other words, the portion that overlaps is this portion here and this part that's hidden behind the circle, and anything on the exterior will be eliminated. So let's go ahead and select these two items, and we can go to Extras, Path Operations, and go to Intersect. And this is our final result. Now let's move on to the next path operation, which is punch. And punch removes portions of closed paths that sit below the topmost path. The topmost path is eliminated as it punches through the other paths, almost like a cookie cutter. So let me just go ahead and demonstrate that. I'm just going to select the star and this other object, and I'm just going to punch a hole and go to Modify, Combine, and go to Punch. And you see it's like a cookie cutter. It has just punched a hole straight through. And we can also select this other object as well and go to Modify, Combine, and select Punch. Now this feature does come in handy for me because I do a lot of floor plans, and I get a lot of different oblong shapes. So what I'll do, instead of having to draw a complex path, I'll just go ahead and I'll seat two objects on top of each other like this. And then I'll just go ahead and I'll select both of them, and then I'll just punch. And then say if I needed to have another section punched out, I'll just go ahead and draw another box or something, and I'll go ahead and I'll punch that area out. And this saves me a lot of time and a lot of effort, because otherwise I'll just have to, just click, click, click individual points. So yeah, just go ahead and practice with this, and you'll find that for a lot of certain things this will save you a lot of time. Now let's take a look at the crop command. Crop takes the topmost path and uses that to crop out the paths that lay beneath it. So let's go ahead and select all three objects and go up to Modify, Combine, and select Crop. And now you can separate these paths, and you can change the color of it or change the stroke, whatever you want to do with it. So let's say you wanted to add a stroke to it, and you wanted to add a dash. You're free to do so. So now that you've learned 5 more tools to modify your paths in a variety of ways, you can create many, many more different interesting objects. But let me mention one thing. If you decide you want to use any symbols that's stored in your library, just make sure that you release the instance of the symbol before using it. Blending objects is yet another cool feature in FreeHand where you can create a ton of different effects. As you see, I've drawn a few samples here, but let's go ahead and select these two elliptical shapes. And the result of that will be this here. But let's go ahead and let me show you how to do that. So I'm just going to go ahead and select these two shapes here. And I'm going to go up to Modify, Combine, Blend, or I can go to Extras, and then this time go to Create, and then select Blend. And you see that it's blended my objects together, but the only problem in that is that you can see the banding. Okay, and now let's go over to our Objects Inspector, and you could see the range of steps, 20 for a blend. Now I'm just going to go ahead and select this one below it because I increased the number of steps for this one. And I increased this one to 100, therefore it looks really smooth. But once again, when you increase the number of steps, you're also increasing your file size as well, so just be careful of that. Now, there are a few rules to using the blends. When you're using gradients, you got to be consistent and use the same type of gradient. Like for example, you can't mix a radial gradient with a contour gradient. And if you do so, this message will pop up letting you know that the two aren't compatible. And same with line strokes and fills, they must be consistent with each other as well. At any rate, you'll know it's not going to work when the message pops up. Okay, let's go ahead and let's make another little example here. And I'm just going to move over here and move my object inspector out of the way. And you see that I've created like a pipe. And I did that by just simply drawing these 4 elliptical shapes here and just selecting the blend. So let's go ahead and select these 4 and do the same thing. Go up to Modify, go to Combine, and choose Blend. And you see that it gives that pipe-like look. And you can even up the steps up on this as well if you want to give it 100. Oops, not 10. Well, you see what 10 does. Okay, let's give it 100. And you see it gives it a really smooth look to it. And for this next example, we're going to join an existing blend to a path. So I've drawn a spiral here, and I have this other blend. So let's go ahead and select both of these. And I'm just going to go up to Modify, Combine, and Join Blend to Path. And you see that it's created an interesting little blend here. Now take a look at our object inspector here, and you see that it says rotate on path. So when it's checked rotate on path, it's doing exactly that. It's rotating on the path. And if I deselect it, this is the effect that it'll have just right here, because this one I have the rotate on path deselected. For this one here too, if you say show path, it'll show you the path, which does not look too great. So let's just leave that unchecked. Now let's go ahead and blend 2 objects together to create a morphing effect. And the finished result is this product right here, but let's go ahead and demonstrate this ourselves. And I'm just going to select these 2 objects and go up to Modify, Combine, and select Blend. And it's pretty neat, huh, how these 2 objects like morph into each other. Embossing creates a bit of a 3D look where you can have the edges of an object raised or lowered. And embossing can only be applied to closed paths. If you decide you want to use a symbol, you must first release the instance of the symbol in order to use it. And I've created some samples of different embossings here for you to look at. So if you ever decide, you want to use this one command, you can just go back here and you can look at the samples and then just pick and choose from here. And let's just go over and scoot over to the right now. And I'm just going to select this box here, and I'm going to go up to Extras. And let's go to Create and go to Emboss. And these icons on top represent the different types of embossing, and as you click on these, you'll see under Type the different names. And under Vary, we have Contrast and Color. And contrast takes on a tint of the path's color for the highlight, and then a combined percentage of black and the path's color for the shadow. And then for color, you can specify the highlight and shadow color. The default colors are white for the highlight and black for the shadow, but you can drag any color that you have stored in your swatches panel. So if you wanted to like drag another color in here for the shadow, and if you wanted the highlight to be yellow, for instance, you can go ahead and do that. And let's hit apply, and then see that's what it would look like. And if you do choose to use this tool, once you've created the look you want, you can store your paths to a symbol and just keep it in your library for future use. So if you wanted to ever import it into another document or something, you can do so. In this exercise, we're going to apply the Inset Path command to a couple of objects. And what this effect does is that it creates multiple copies of an object within itself or outside of itself, and gives the graphic some pretty interesting effects. So let's start out by selecting this first object here, and then we're going to go to Extras and go to Path Operations, and let's go ahead and select Inset Path. And for this first example, let's set the number of steps to 5. So just type a 5 in there. And let's keep it uniform. And the inset value, let's go ahead and keep that at 10. And by placing a positive value within the inset, we'll place the copies within the object. Now go ahead and hit OK. And you see that it's placed the additional copies within the star, giving it a pretty cool effect. And let's just go ahead and do another example here. Let's select this star and go back to Extras, Path Operations, and go to Inset Path. And this time let's choose Farther. And I'm just going to keep the rest of the settings the same and hit OK. And let's go ahead and choose another one and go up to Extras, Path Operations, Inset Path, and this time let's choose Near and see what that effect looks like. And hit OK. For this next example, let's go ahead and place a negative value in the inset setting. So let's go ahead and select this one and go up to Extras and go to Path Operations, Inset Path, and let's type in like a -20 and hit OK. Wow, and you see what's happened here. It's increased the size of the path itself since we've placed the additional paths outside. For this next example, the finished product is going to look like this. And what we're going to start out with is this circle and this star. So let's go ahead and, first of all, let's go ahead and select the circle and then clone it. So let's go up to Edit, select Clone, and then clone it, and then send that to the back. Okay, just like that. Now go ahead and deselect the circle, and I'm going to go ahead and select the star and select the topmost circle. Now go to Extras, go to Path Operations, and select Punch. You see that since we cloned that extra circle, that added a background to the otherwise clear star. So let me just show you. So in other words, if we didn't clone that circle, what it would look like would be like this, and we wouldn't have a background to it. So let's just Apple Z that. So now let's go ahead and select the punched out star, the one on top here, and let's go to Extras, go to Path Operations, and this time let's go to Inset Path. Now let's go ahead and change these settings. Let's leave it at 5 steps, but let's change this to Uniform, and the inset, let's go ahead and bring it to 10. And let's hit OK. Now that you see, it's made a pretty cool looking pattern, but it's kind of hard to see because the stroke and the fill color are the same. So let's go ahead and change the stroke color to a darker color so we can see the contrast. And I'm just going to go down here and let's select another color. It's like I've chosen red for the other one, and we can also choose red for this one as well. And see, now you can see the ornate pattern on there. Now let's go ahead and Apple Z that, or Control Z. And instead of changing the stroke color, let's go ahead and change the fill color. And I'm just going to choose the same red. And then see, now it looks exactly like this pattern here. So as you can see, the possibilities are endless as to what you can create. So, once again, experiment with all the different settings and see what you can come up with. And I'm quite sure, you can come up with some pretty original, trick-looking designs. In this exercise, we're going to learn how to create some text. So let's go ahead and select the text symbol, just like that, and click anywhere on the page, and you can just start typing. And by default, the text tool creates an auto-expanding text block, just like how I've made this example here. Let's just select that. And that just expands as you type, and it just gets longer and longer and longer. And this is okay if you don't have large bodies of text, but otherwise it can be quite a pain. So I suggest if you're going to be like creating a newsletter or something, that you make a fixed text block just like how I have here. And how you do that is let's go back to the text tool, and let's just press our mouse key down and just draw a fixed area here. So in other words, you can start typing and that all your text will be contained within this area. But the only drawback to that is if you type a lot and then say if it expands down, then you're going to run out of room and you're going to have to just expand this box out yourself. Now let me show you something. So just go ahead and select this block of text here. And I'm just going to grab this little handle and just move it about. And you see this black dot? Well, that means that there's more text hidden. So in order to reveal that text, I'm just going to have to just bring that out, just like that. So this is a fixed text block, and it just goes according to whatever size that you size this at. So, and this one here, it will just keep typing and typing until you're off the page. So each one has its purposes. You know, if you're just like typing call-outs or something, you know, this will be just fine. So you can just go ahead and just select your text tool and just click and just type a little bit of text, and it doesn't matter. And you can also see what type of text you have as well in your text inspector. So let's just drag this guy over here. And it shows that we're currently using Arial. So you just select that, and it'll tell you we're using Arial. And it's plain, it's not bold, and it's a 24-point text, which is left justified. We have no effects on it, and it's just normal text. So there's also another way that you can edit text, and that's in the text editor. So let's go to text. Let's just select text and choose editor, and just press that down. And you can also just highlight this, and you can just go ahead and just type in whatever changes that you have here. Personally, I never use this, but maybe you'll like this way better. So just whatever your preference is. Let's just go ahead and cancel out of there right now and deselect that. And let's just cruise back over to the text inspector. And as we talked about earlier, we know this is our where our font name is, and we can choose from the selection of different fonts. And this is where your font styles are, your sizes. And the window below that is where we can adjust the leading to our text, or in other words, the spacing in between the lines. So currently it's at 3. Let's go ahead and give it 6. And watch the text to the left as I do that. So let's just type in 6 and hit return. And you notice that it increased the spacing in between the lines. Let's just pull this window out so we can see it a little bit better. But you see how much spacing is between, and that's where you would adjust that. So if you want it just 1, let's just go ahead and put it back to 1, and then you see that it's decreased in space. And this little window here is for your custom leading settings. So let's go ahead and take a look at the first one, the plus sign. That one lets you specify a value by points to be added to the current point size. So if your current point size is like, say, 12, and you enter 14, the leading will be now 26, and this changes according to whatever the size of your text is. And moving on to the next one, the equal sign or the fixed option, you can specify an exact point size, and no matter if you change the size of the font, it still stays the same. And with the percentage option, you can specify a percentage of the current font size, and that value changes along with any changes to the size of the font. Okay, let's just click out of there. And this is your size of your kerning, or in other words, the size of the spacing between the letters. And this one controls your baseline shift. And I've made an example of a baseline shift right here. Let's go ahead and zoom in on that and take a look at that. And just using your hand tool, let's just scroll down a little bit. Right here, I have no baseline shift, so therefore it's at 0. But here I do have a negative value, so let's go ahead and highlight the word negative, and you see a negative value of 10 in there. let's go ahead and go to our two letters here, the F and the T, and let's put a positive value of 20. Just type in 20 and hit return, and just click out of there. Let's move this out of the way. And you see how the text has raised. That's like if you were to type like mathematical equations like MC squared or something, that would come in really handy for that. And just cruising back over to the text inspector, these 4 settings are for your text alignment. And for these, no effect, I'm just going to show you very quickly because I'm going to get into these more later, so I'm not going to talk about it right now, but just want to show you the list. These are the list of effects that you can choose to have with your text as well. Let's go ahead and go to the second button here, which is our paragraph inspector. Just go ahead and click on that. And these first 2 settings here is where you enter your values for above the paragraph and below the paragraph. So it'll put spacing above or below your paragraph. Over to the right is your left margin indent, the first one. This is your right margin indent and your first line indent. And then here where it says hang punctuation, if you check that, then it'll set your punctuation marks outside of your paragraph. And for hyphenate, this turns on your hyphenation. So you can limit the number of lines that end with a hyphenation, or you can prevent specific words from being hyphenated. And let's just jump over to the third button here. And this is where you would set your spacing options. And let's just go over here where there's this expanded A, and currently it's set to 100%. And if we decrease that value, what'll happen is that it'll compress the text. So let's see, let's type in like 50 and hit return. Oops, let's go ahead and highlight some text first. And then let's type in value of like say 50 and then hit the return key. And you see how it squished the text? Well, anyway, that's what that control is for. And for the spacing here, the same is applicable to the word and letter spacing as well. And this next one here that says keep together, that's kind of cool in the sense that it keeps like catchphrases together. So if you have a catchy phrase of some sort that you don't want broken down into 2 lines, just go ahead and highlight the word and just check selected words. Okay, moving on to our next selection. Let's go ahead and press this button here, and this one's for your columns and rows, and you see that everything's grayed out. So let's just go down below here and just click on our text to select it, and that way it kind of activates these windows. And in these first windows here with where the values of 1 are, that's where you would set the number of columns. And this is where your columns would, in this one here, it would flow down and into the next column. And that's what's specified here. It goes down and up into the next column. And this one goes across and into the next column as specified with this window here. So if we currently have this selected, so we would specify we want like 4 columns. We would type in 4 here. And then you would set your spacing, and then your rule setting would be here. Right now we have none. And if we were to choose inset, that will create rules that break in the spaces between the columns or rows. And for full height, that would create full column rules without a break in space. Okay, so let's just go ahead and just click out of there, and let's move on to our next button. And this last button here, which is adjust columns, that balances the columns of text. And let's just go to the top here where it says adjust columns. If we were to check this box here, balance, what would happen, that would distribute the text evenly among the columns. And this one here, if we checked modify leading, that adjusts the leadings in the columns so that the text fills in evenly. And then threshold is the percentage setting a column must fill before the modify leading kicks in. And down below here where it says copy fit percentage is where you would enter a minimum and your maximum value size and percentages that enables your text to fit within your columns. And down here where it says first line leading, you would enter a point size in this here, and then remember we had these same symbols. Okay, the first one, the percentage, that one just adds to the current point size, remember, and it changes according to the size of the font. And the next one, the fixed option, the fixed option stays the same regardless if you change the size of the font. And the percentage option, the very last one there, that one is where you would enter a leading value as a percentage of the font size. And let's just go up to the text menu, which is above the main toolbar, and just click on that. And you'll see some of the same settings that's in the text inspector. So, you can use it and, change your font size and everything from the text menu too. It's a matter of preference once again. And you have your font and your size, styles, and everything's up here as well as accessing the editor. If you want to use this to edit your text, you can do so. You can also do a spell check here too. You can just hit spelling and then just hit start, and then it'll find just weird words or capitalization issues, and it'll bring them up to you, and it'll ask you if you wanted to capitalize it. So if you go change, just watch the B over to the left, just go change, and you notice it changed it to an uppercase B. And we can just cancel out of here, and let's just go back up there. And for these down below, we're going to get into this in another exercise, so we're not going to talk about this right now. So let's just get out of there right now. So at least now you know the basics of text, enough to get you started to where you can just type simple bodies of text. So let's just move on to our next exercise. In this exercise, we're going to show you how to combine text and graphics by creating a simple text wrap. I've drawn a little ball, and then I've typed the text already. So the first rule is that whenever you do a text wrap, you want to make sure that your graphics is on the top layer of your text. So let's just go ahead and select the ball. And I'm just going to marquee over it, and then you see the little handles. That means it's selected. Let's go up to Modify and go Arrange, and let's say Bring to Front. Okay, so now that positions our graphics over on top of our text. Okay, and now let's select the text. Let's just select it by holding the Shift key down. And let's go to Text and go down to where it says Runaround Selection and just select that. And then currently, you see the one with the lines through the graphics. That means it's in its current state right now. There is no runaround. So let's just go ahead and select the runaround selection, and then you'll see standoff settings. Just so it's not so tight around these edges, because right now if it's 0, then there's going to be no spacing. So let's just give it a little bit of space, and let's just set it at 6 all the way down. And let's hit OK. And you see how that ran around the graphics. And if you don't like the look of it, you can move it around, and you can always use your arrow keys to move it around that way as well, because that's kind of cool, because then you can see subtly how that would change your spacing and everything. But I think you get the idea of that. And let's move on to the next one. Let's just use our hand tool, and I've created another different type of runaround that you can do here, and that's running around a path. So the same deal, just go ahead and select the path, and then select the text, and just go back up to text and go down to runaround selection and select that, and then just choose the runaround selection, and just so let's type in like 1, since we have some airspace between there anyway. So let's just hit OK, and you see how it's ran around this this shape here. So same deal, but let's go ahead and get rid of the stroke so that stroke is invisible. So that'll look better yet. Okay, so now let's go ahead and hold our Shift key down and select both the graphics and the path, and go Control G or Apple G to group it. And now get your arrow and just move it around, the arrows on your keyboard. And then you can just reposition that to however looks best for you, and see how that changes. So that's how you can run around text around the path. And then with paths, it's cool because then you can always ungroup that, and you can reshape your path as well. And, if you type a lot of newsletters or periodicals or something, this will come in really handy for you. In this exercise, we're just going to learn the basics of how to create a style for our text and for our objects. So firstly, let's make sure that our Styles panel's out, and if it isn't, just go to Window, go to Panel, and go down to Styles. Okay, and just select that, and let's just get out of there, and let's just go onto our document page. And you see that I've already created some samples for you to look at. So let's go ahead and select our text tool here. And let's just click in this first sample I have here and go to our Styles panel. And you see that it's called out as Arial Red. Now let's go ahead and create another style. So let's just select this line of text here. And let's just give it another color. Let's give it green. And let's make it bold. Now let's look at the swatches panel for a minute. Just click on that and you see that the green isn't defined in there. So let's just go ahead and drag that from our fill bucket and just drop it in there and just minimize that window. Now let's come back to our styles panel and click on this arrow and select new, and now it's called style 1, so let's give it a name. Just double click on that name, just type in green and hit your return key. And then now, whenever you want to define that certain style, you can just go and select another line of text and just go ahead and click and just hit green. You don't even have to select that whole line of text. You can just select within it and just have the blinking cursor, and then you can change the style and just change that to green. Now let's go ahead and take a look at some objects that I've created down below here, and the same can be applied to those. And you see here I've defined that like as pink star. This one has no definition yet, so if we wanted to give it another definition, you can just simply click on another name, or you can reassign it another style as well too. Also, you can go back up into the arrow and select that and go down to import, and you can also import different styles. And that is in your FreeHand 10 folder under English and Styles. So let's just go there. And you can go into like RGB styles and just say open. And you see a whole bunch of cool different styles in here that you can import in. So, let's just choose one. It's kind of funky. Let's just bring that one in. And then now we have, let's see, where is it? Dots. Here we go. So let's just choose the pink star and just reassign it dots. It doesn't show up too good, so probably don't want to use that. So we can just change it. And that one's a cool one, the bubbles one. But I think you get the idea for that. So it's just the same thing. If you want to just create a new one, you can just create a new one by just going up into the arrow and choosing that. If you want to duplicate one, you can do that as well as removing any unused styles as well too. Now, moving down to export, you can export any existing styles that you have in your document as well by just going to export, and you can select a specific style that you want to export. And then you can just choose one. You can go export and rename it, and then give it a destination, and make sure when you do so that you remember where you saved it to, so you don't have to do this great big search afterwards. And let's just cancel out of there. So, this will come in handy too. Once again, if you type a lot of newsletters or something where you have headers and footers with the same style, but then you'll probably use your master page setting for that. But if you have certain titles that you want with certain styles, you can just go ahead and create a style sheet and just use that, and it'll make things a lot faster. So, once again, have fun and play with this, because it is a fun little tool. In this exercise, we finally get to do some fun things with text by attaching it to a path. And you see that I've drawn a few samples for you to look at, and these samples will be included on the CD as well. Let's just move over to the left with our little handy hand tool. And let's just move over here. And I've typed some text over here off to the side. And let's go ahead and draw a path with our pencil. And just draw a nice flowing line like that. And using our arrow tool, and hold your shift key down, select the first line of text, then go up to text and go attach to path. And that attaches it to the path. Now, since this is a path, you can reshape it by just grabbing the handles, and you can stretch it as well as, turning the handles as well. And then if you want to detach that text from the path, you can just go back up to text and just select detach from path, and that'll detach it from the path. So now let's go ahead and attach this text to a circle. Let's go to our ellipse tool and our main tools panel, and holding our shift key down, let's constrain this to a perfect circle and just let go. And you notice right now it has a fill to it, but watch. So let's hold the shift key down and select the text, go back up to text, attach to path, and you notice the fill disappears and the text is wrapped around the top of the text. Now let's Control Z or Apple Z this, and let's just go back to the text tool and select it, and then let's hit a return between text and to. So just click between there and then hit return. And then now let's go and select both our text and the circle, and then go back up to text and go attach to path, and watch what happens. Now instead of all wrapping on the top, it's broken down into 2 lines. So that's cool too. So let's just Apple Z that. And now let's go text, and then this time let's flow inside of the path, and watch what happens. This time it flows inside of the path and it retains the fill as well. But if you wanted to change the fill color, you're going to have to detach it from the path and then go in and then select that and then make your changes from there, and then go back. Well, that's hideous, but I think you get the idea, and then go flow inside a path. Now let's go ahead and take a look at some of these examples that I've created here. Let's go ahead and select this first line of text and look at the object inspector. I've undocked this so we can get a better view of this, because we need to look at the text inspector as well. And if you see under orientation, it says it's skewed vertical. Now let's just go ahead and select the second one, and it's skewed horizontal, and this one's skewed vertical. And let's look at the list. And you see why I've named it this, because in that way you can get a visual and you can see exactly what that particular function will do without having to test it. So this file is included on the CD, so you can go ahead and just look at these examples and then pick and choose of what you like. Now let's just go down and deselect that for a minute, and let's go down and look at some of the text effects. Now let's select the first one, go to our text inspector, and you see that zoom is selected. And the second one we have underline, and this one is, I've chose to name it red line strikeout, because word processors use this a lot, and when they're doing their documents, they use what's called a red line strikeout. So let's look at the list here, and you have your different effects that you can use from this list as well. And once again, just play around with them just so you could see what the different effects are, and you can combine them and see what you like and everything. So let's just move over here, and then you see that I've attached text to a path in various ways. Let's just go ahead and detach this one, and then you'll see I've attached this to a spiral. It's endless as far as what type of paths that you do want to attach it to. And let's just go ahead and Apple Z that so it'll reattach itself. Okay, and let's just come back over here again and come back down to my blank page here, and let's go ahead and draw another path. Let's just draw another path just like that, and let's go attach to path, and go text, attach to path. And then you say to yourself, well, you know what? I want it in the reverse direction. So let's just Control Z or Apple Z that. Let's go to Modify and go down to Alter Path. And this time let's go reverse direction. Okay, now let's go back to text and go attach to path. Oops, let's select, make sure that's selected. And go attach to path. And you see that it's reversed the direction as it was in before. So now that you've learned some really fun and funky things to do with the text, I'm quite sure you're going to go ahead and experiment a lot and come up with some really cool original ideas. So have fun. And this is a fun little exercise where we will be converting text to a path. Let's go ahead and zoom in on this text that I've created here and convert it to a path. And you see that I've applied a style to it. If we just click on it, you see that it's a small bubbles style. Now, mind you that once you do convert text to a path and you want to edit it, you're going to have to type it all over. So just beware of that. So let's just go ahead and zoom out and move this guy up here. And let's go ahead and type some text. And let's get a cooler font than what it is. And let's just highlight on top of there, and let's go and choose impact. That's always cool. And let's increase the size of the text as well. Well, that's kind of too big, but let's make it like 48. Okay, now let's go to text and convert to path. And now we can fill this or do whatever we want with it. So let's go ahead to fill. And let's say if we want to give it a gradient, we can give it a gradient. See, that's cool, isn't it? Let's do this one. And let's just give it a color. Yeah, you see how cool that looks? It's like kind of a metallic look to it. But this is really a cool feature too. So, you know, just be aware that you can do a lot of things with this, and you can also ungroup it, and you can separate your text. And if you wanted to offset it or do some weird stuff with it, you can do so, you know, or mix and match all your text. Or if you wanted to change the color of your individual text, you can do so also, as well as apply different styles to the text too. So now, in addition to attaching your text to a path, you can also convert it to a path and apply some really cool effects to it. So once again, have fun. In this exercise, I'm going to show you how to apply 2 simple flash actions to buttons. I've created a master page that serves as my background template, and on the page itself, I've created a couple of buttons and a triangle. Since we're depicting motion, the triangles on each page will be in a different position. The buttons will remain in the same stationary position. So let's go ahead and apply the first flash action to the button on the left, which is a play button. And if your navigational panel isn't open, then go to Window, go to Panels, and select Navigation. And let's just maximize that window here. Now let's go ahead and select all the play buttons. So I'm going to select this first one, and then just hold your Shift key down to select the others. Now go to your action window and then select Play. The event will automatically set itself to on press, which means that the button will be activated upon depression. And let's just go ahead and leave it there. Now let's go ahead and select the stop buttons. Then go back to your navigation panel and select stop, and leave the event just as is on press. Before we go on any further, let's look at our navigation window. If you wanted to name your movie, you can do so by just typing a name in here. And you can also add notes. You can also add a URL that would be attached to your objects. And under substring, that displays words or phrases within an active text block that's linked to the URL under link. And under action, as you know, we just applied play and stop action to our buttons. But the first one here, go to, that jumps to a specific frame or scene. And the play and stop does exactly that. It plays and stops your movies or objects. And print, that specifies which frames in a movie that can be directly printed from the flash player. And full screen displays a movie in the flash player at a full screen mode rather than a normal mode. And the start, stop, drag makes a movie clip draggable and stops dragging when the opposite action occurs. And load and unload movie loads and unloads additional movies when a current movie is playing. And tell target controls other movies and movie clips that were loaded into the current movie with the load movie action. And you can also set your parameters here accordingly when this action is selected. Now let's go ahead and look at event. And the very first one on top is on press, and that's when you press a button and the event will be activated. And on release is when you release a button. And on over is when you roll over a button. And on out is when you roll off of a button. And frame action is when the playhead in Flash reaches a certain frame and the event is activated. Now let's go ahead and set everything back to where it was. I'm just going to set this on press, and for the action I got to bring it back to stop. Okay, so let's go ahead and just minimize this window here. Now let's go ahead and take a look at our movie settings. Let's go to Control, select Movie Settings, and Path Compression determines how precisely a freehand path will convert to a flash path. And then, maximum being the maximum compression and the smallest file, and none being the essentially no compression and then the best looking file, but also the largest too. So let's leave it on medium. And if you have any dashed lines that you've drawn, you can go ahead and check this option here, and then it'll just trace your dashed lines out into little individual pieces. If your graphic contains any bitmaps, then you can go ahead and set your compression here. And for text, if you have any text that you want to remain editable, then I would just keep it at maintain blocks. Otherwise, you can check convert paths, and it'll do exactly that, convert your text to a path. And if you select none, then what will happen when it exports out, it'll export everything out but your text. So let's just leave it on maintain blocks. And then if you want to export all your pages, then keep it at all. Otherwise, you can designate what pages you want to export out just in this window here by checking from and just typing the pages in right there. But let's just recheck all. And animation, we have layers and pages. And layers and pages exports as one SWF, and the layers on each page are individually converted to frames. And then layers exports pages as individual SWFs. And pages exports pages as frames in one SWF. And then none exports each page as individual SWFs. Okay, we want to just leave it on pages. Frame rate, we want to leave it on 12 frames per second, which produces the smoothest animation, and that's the most desirable. So we'll just leave that there. And autoplay just starts automatically playing the movie, and full screen playback is where you can view the movie at full screen. And for the compatibility, we want to leave it on Flash 5. And if you want to protect your SWF from import, in other words, from other users importing your file, then you can go ahead and check this box. And if you want to produce any high-resolution prints, then go ahead and check this box here. Now let's just press OK. Okay, let's go ahead and test our movie, and we can do so within the freehand document by just using the Flash controller panel. And I'm just going to undock mine because mine's right here. But if yours isn't out, then just go to Window, Toolbars, and select Controller. And this first button here is Test Movie, so let's just go ahead and press that. And the movie's moving along very nicely here. Let's go ahead and try our buttons. Let's stop the movie. Okay, and let's start it back up again. And the beauty of this method is that you can actually test your movie before going to export your document as a SWF. And if you want to export your movie as a SWIF without having to go to File Export, you can just simply check this button here, and it'll export your movie. And let's just go ahead and cancel out of here. And if you wanted to check your movie settings, you can do so by just depressing that button, and then you can just change your movie settings here. Let's cancel out of here, as well as controlling your movie from this point too, and you can just stop your movie and you can start it back up again. Well, now you learned some basic techniques within Freehand to create some simple flash pages and assigning them simple actions as well. And if you want to learn more on Flash action scripting, look for the new Flash MX hands-on training.